What's up? It's Mark back on the Stage Soccer channel. I just got done watching Canada and USA go at it. USA won 1-0, and man, it was a pretty poor game by the USA, all things considered. I mean, could have been a lot better. We still got the 3 points, came up on top of the group. We'll have to see how that pans out with a Mexico game later tonight, see if that even was good for us. But yeah, really not a good performance, and a lot of things to talk about. Well, if you didn't see the game, early goal for the U.S. that gave us the lead. Walker Zimmerman went off injured. That was pretty poor, but I don't think that affected the game that much. He might have given away a penalty when he got injured, but didn't get called. Just overall not a great performance. I think the biggest problem was the two strikers we had. We had Daryl, Dike, and Zardes up front, and they did not work well together at all. Both of them couldn't get involved. They didn't have any chemistry. Honestly, they feel like they got in each other's way more than anything, and yeah, those two were just non-existent throughout the game. They also didn't press at all, which had to be a tactical decision, but yeah, that was something in this game, and didn't give any pressure to the Canada team and really allowed them to just dominate the game, dictate how things were going. Midfield couldn't get a real grip of the game. Busio, he wasn't at his best. Lletget, I don't think he was playing well despite the assist. Kellyn Acosta, I'm not too sure about him in the game, him playing too much anymore, and just giving the ball away far too easily. Busio was a big culprit of this. Shaq more when he was on, just giving the ball away, and I think going forward, too many crosses. We were just kind of lumping the ball forward. There was no real hold-up play. They were trying to kick it up, like kick and run style. It was a really poor game tactically, and not the greatest game. Individually for us, I think the star players were James Sands, Sam Vines, Miles Robinson, and Matt Turner. James Sands was getting forward somewhat well, and he was defending very well. He had a lot of last-ditch tackles, saving goals, and man, he had some good headers. He was a great defensive player. He really established himself ahead of George Bello today, and especially with his move to Europe coming ahead, I feel like he might be our number 2 at left back. If he gets called up is another question, because Serginho Dest is another option there, and our right back core is stacked, and he's not ahead of Robinson, but he definitely did a good job today. James Sands, he's proven himself as a center back. He was great on the ball. He had some really nice defensive moments, and yeah, if he can continue doing stuff like this, big moves going to come from him, and we got to start giving him a lot more chances. Great game by him. Miles Robinson and Matt Turner, they did well defending and shot stopping. The distribution wasn't too great, but Miles Robinson, as a pure defender, he was great today. Some really good stops, and good job by him. And Matt Turner, a lot of really nice saves. It kept us in the game, especially when beginning of the second half when Donovan Pines gave the ball away. But yeah, they were all pretty good today. Gianluca Busio, did not like him today. Pretty poor performance. He was giving the ball away too much. Even in possession, his passes weren't great. There are a lot of times where he really should have been leading somebody. It kind of ended up going behind him, his passes, and he wasn't able to dictate play. I feel like he was playing a bit more forward than he usually does, but still, you really don't like to see that. Poor performance by Busio, but given this lack of depth in this team, I feel like he should continue to start. And he was doing pretty well defensively, all things considered, so that's something. Dike and Zardes, poor performances that I mentioned. They just didn't work well together, and you got to make the decision to cut one of them. And I think you know my take. I've got to rock with Daryl Dike and get him back into the game. Then Sebastian Lletget, I just want to talk about him because he had the assist, which was very good, but I saw there weren't even too many terrible moments. But has he ever been a part of a midfield that's dominated a game? Like, for real. Because Gianluca Busio, we've seen him dominate the ball. We saw it last game. Against Haiti with Lletget? Not really. Against, every team in the Nations League, whenever he plays in those friendlies, we do not dominate the ball. And Sebastian Lletget is a pattern in that. We do not control the game when he's playing. I was giving him a pass because, you know what, no Tyler Adams, he's playing with Acosta, he's playing with Yueill. I feel like this game was a bit of an indictment on him. I've been a defender, Sebastian Lletget, and I don't feel like he had a bad game today, but he's someone we can't dominate a midfield with, and that has to be said, and he really shouldn't be a starter for us, this team moving forward. Kellyn Acosta, I feel like he didn't have a good game. He wasn't doing too well defensively. he did lead to the right at the beginning of the game. He did lead to the goal. He had a good step up, and honestly, might take a lucky bounce, but he found Sebastian Lletget, who gave the pass to Shaq more. So that do have to give him credit for that, but he's not up to standard technically, and he shouldn't be in the team because of that. Shaq Moore, I feel like he didn't play the best. He scored the goal, obviously, and that's great. But he wasn't getting it forward as much as he had before, and Reggie Cannon came on for him. I don't feel like he was bad enough to get substituted. I think that was more fitness related, but yeah, it wasn't his greatest game. I feel like he's been on a bit of a decline since the first game, but still, he's had a very good tournament. He's definitely put himself in the conversation. So, but I just want to mention, didn't feel like he was the greatest today. And Donovan Pines, you got to take your opportunity. And I know this was a bad situation, but he didn't do well. He had some good one-on-one defending moments, but man, he was giving the ball away too much, and you can't be a starter if you're going to do things like that. So poor performance by Donovan Pines, and really, if Zimmerman's out, we might have to switch to a forward the pack because you can't start somebody like that. Yeah, that's about it for individual players. The tactical decision of pushing James Sands to the midfield. I feel like that was doing well. And our defense was stepping up very well. Miles Robinson and Donovan Pines were both doing this, just stepping up and not allowing Canadian players to turn. So that was a very good job by them. Then just a couple more things I want to talk about. That Zardes and Dike partnership, that didn't work at all. I think probably want to put Matthew Hoppe in for one of them. I'd like to see Dike and Hoppe. I feel like that was working well. And Dike and Sam Vines were combining up very well. So that's something to mention. I have no idea how they stayed on together for, I think it was 75 minutes they stayed on. And they should have been off after 55, maybe 60. But yeah, that was not the greatest. Matt Turner, even though he was making some good saves, he's still not great with his feet. Distribution's still not where it should be. So that's something to keep in mind. Just playing the ball out the back. I mean, even with Walker Zimmerman, he was making a good amount of mistakes earlier. And something similar to Mark McKenzie, where you could tell, like, in more competitive games, he was struggling with that, as opposed to when we were playing Costa Rica, he was looking very good. So, yeah, that was not great by Zimmerman today. So I don't think he's ahead of Mark McKenzie at all. And, and Robinson and Pines weren't even that good either. So distribution and playing it out of the back as a whole was an issue today. So maybe that's something to think about when talking about the midfield. But again, not really great. Fullbacks weren't getting forward that well. I think Sam Vines had a good game, but both of them weren't able to contribute to the attack too much. And midfield very poor, as I mentioned. Gianluca Busio not great, giving the ball away too much. Sebastian Lletget, I feel like he can be a real passenger sometimes during games, and Kellyn Acosta really shouldn't be starting. During this game, like, we were getting a lot of calls too. I feel like the refs are on our side for this one. I mean, yeah, I don't feel like that often, but this one I definitely felt that a little bit. For the substitutes, I mentioned Donovan Pines. I feel like he wasn't that great. Reggie Cannon didn't do too much. He's still coming back from an injury. Can't judge him too much. Jackson Yueill and Cristian Roldan both didn't affect the game, and I feel like Matthew Hoppe did have some moments, which he was playing pretty well, I thought. He definitely should be starting for the rest of the tournament. And man, this team could really have used like a Leon Flock in it, or maybe like a Cole Bassett, just one more midfielder who you can really trust, I guess. Because like Kellyn Acosta, he can't control a game. Jackson Yueill, he's not defensively strong enough at his position. Just one more more complete player, I guess, would have really helped. Yeah, that's all I've talked about for the U.S. A little bit on Canada. Man, I'm getting kind of scared of them because they're playing well. They didn't have the finishing touch, but they're going to add an Alphonso Davies. They're going to add a Jonathan David. They were dominating the midfield without Hutchinson, without Estacio. I want to say, I hope I got his name right. So yeah, they are looking pretty scary, and that World Cup qualifying game against them, that's going to be very tough. We're going to have our full strength team if we want to beat them. And yeah, I'm wondering how Tajon Buchanan emerging is going to impact into Alphonso Davies, because he's playing that wingback role, and that could really allow Davies to go more further forward. So that's something to keep in mind. And one thing about this Canadian team, they are too polite. There were a lot of penalty chances where they just were not talking to the ref at all, which, I mean, that's good. You'd like to see it, but it just doesn't work. I mean, you're not going to get a foul if you stand up. Honestly, he's dead in soccer right now. So, yeah, that's all I'll talk about. Yeah, not the greatest game. Still got 3 points, still advanced. Hopefully Mexico does their job, so we won't have to play them in the semis. But, yeah, that's all I'll talk about. See you.